25,000 unique cards in Magic the Gathering, but how many are truly unplayable in the Commander format? In this video, I want to talk about a blue spell with a very unusual effect that was recommended in one of my recent videos, Trait Doctoring. Trait Doctoring is a 1-mana sorcery spell released in Dragon's Maze, a set notorious for its underwhelming cards. It has two effects. First, change the text of target permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another or one basic land type with another until end of turn. This means you could change the text of non-black creature to non-green creature, or forest walk to mountain walk. Next, Trait Doctoring also has Cipher, which lets you exile a spell card after it resolves, encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may then cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. Now, Trait Doctoring is not the first card to let you change color words or land types on a card. It's also far from the most efficient. Mindbend, Sleight of Mind, and Whim of Volrath all do similar things at instant speed. Better yet, Mindbend and Sleight of Hand make the change permanently, not just until end of turn. Whim of Volrath also has Buyback, letting you put it back in your hand after it resolves if you spend 2 extra mana. At 2 mana, you've got even more instant speed options with Alter Reality, Glamour Dye, and Spectral Shift. Like before, these effects last indefinitely. Not to mention, Alter Reality has Flashback, Glamour Dye has Retrace, and Spectral Shift has Entwine, all of which provide additional value. At 3 mana, you've got one final option, Crystal Spray. While it only lasts until end of turn, it at least refunds you a card. Compared to these other options, Trait Doctoring is, well, not great. The thing is, if you want this kind of effect, you really don't have many options, meaning Trait Doctoring still probably makes the cut. So, what decks do want this kind of effect? These cards are typically used in color hoser strategies. Normally, color hosers aren't very good in Magic, as you don't know what colors your opponents will be playing. That's why these color changers are so important. They let you adapt your strategy on the fly to ensure your color hosing effects always hit the right color. Wizards has largely moved away from color hosers in modern Magic, and not just because they've pretty much never seen play in any competitive format, but also because they are incredibly oppressive against monocolored decks. Essentially, they either do nothing or create non-games where one player is effectively locked out. And that's exactly why Iona, Shield of Emeria, is banned in Commander. Still, if you're a degenerate Magic player like myself, there are plenty of cards in all combinations of colors that are doing this strategy. Here are some of my favorites, but be warned, this strategy won't make you any friends at the table. In blue, you've got Douse, King Crab, Tidal Control, Breadth of Dreams, Washout, Wrath of Merit Lage, and Insight. White as a color has the most cards that fit this strategy, but my favorites are the Northern and Southern Paladins, Light of Day, and Order of the Sacred Torch. I also want to mention Karma and Stern Judge, one of the few cards that can really take advantage of changing a land type. In red, there's Scald, Havoc, and Magistrate's Veto. Blood Moon, Red Elemental Blast, and Pyroblast also deserve a shout out for red. In black, I like Dystopia, Putrefaction, the Western and Eastern Paladins, Stromgald Cabal, Dread of Night, and Death Grip. Finally, in green, you've got Life Force, Carpet of Flowers, Elephant Grass, Compost, Snake Pit, and Choke. Color changers are absolutely essential to making a color hosing deck work, and while Trait Doctoring isn't the most efficient color changer available, any deck that's doing this strategy will still want to include it as they probably want as many redundancies of this effect as possible. I also want to mention the other kind of color changers in the format, cards that alter a permanent's color, not the text on a permanent. Cards like Scuttlemutt, Distorting Lens, Cloud Chaser Kestrel, Aurora Griffin, Indigo Fairy, Dreamcoat, Illusion to Reality, the Lace cycle of cards, Govern the Guildless, and the most popular version of this effect, Painter's Servant. You've also got Blind Seer and 8.5 Tails, both of which could be your commander if you wanted to go all in on this strategy. Some commanders who could be using this strategy include Ascendant Evinkar, Dromar the Banisher, and Sig River Guide. One more thing I'll mention about this strategy is that if you're already playing a commander with built-in protection or a landwalk ability, you could consider adding a color hoser subtheme as these cards favorably interact with your commander. Animar, Soul of Elements, Lavinia of the Tenth, Rexiel the Risen Deep, and Thada Adel Acquisitor come to mind. Okay, so we've covered the color hosers, and I think it's fair to say that Trait Doctoring, while not the best, is still worth including in those decks. But are there any other strategies that can take advantage of this weird 1-mana sorcery? Yes, I believe there are. First, decks that want to repeatedly target their own creatures, or their opponent's creatures, can make use of this card. Even if a permanent has no color words on it, you can still use Trait Doctoring to target that permanent. Yes, it will do nothing, but Trait Doctoring will then encode itself onto one of your creatures, letting you cast a spell that targets a thing every turn, for as long as that creature can connect for damage. Maybe you're building a heroic or valiant style deck, using cards like Heartfire Hero, Emberheart Challenger, Illuminator Virtuoso, Phalanx Leader, Stormchaser Drake, Sage of Hours, Artisan of Forms, Season of Growth, Legolas Master Archer, Agent of the Fates, or Ashiok's Adept. Or maybe you're in a crime theme, using cards like Magda the Horde Master, Vadmir New Blood, At Knife Point, Free Strider Lookout, Intimidation Campaign, Marchesa Dealer of Death, Gisa the Hellraiser, or Marauding Sphinx. In these style of decks, Cipher cards can be used as free ways to trigger your strategy turn after turn. Trait Doctoring is the cheapest Cipher card in the game and deserves consideration, especially if you have any other ways to take advantage of its color changing effect. Some commanders who may already be doing this include Ivy Gleeval Spellthief, Queza Augur of Agonies, Aragorn the Uniter, and Kamiz Obscura Oculus. Oh, and don't forget about Orvar the Allform, who can use Trait Doctoring to repeatedly target and copy his lands, and that's just crazy busted. Finally, there is one more strategy that maybe, just maybe, can take advantage of Trait Doctoring. It might be a stretch, but any deck that wants to cast more than one spell a turn, but isn't actually a Storm deck, could use Trait Doctoring. Other Cipher cards also give you a free cast every turn, but are likely to draw more hate than Trait Doctoring. Hands of Binding, for example, will probably make you a target. Trait Doctoring, not so much. So what do I mean by not quite Storm decks? Well, there are a small subset of decks that want to cast 2 to 4 spells a turn, but don't want to storm off. Captain Ripley Vance is a great example of this. You really only want to cast 3 spells a turn, and Cipher is a great way to enable this. Any cards that trigger when you cast your second spell each turn become way more usable when your first spell is free. Malcolm the Eyes, Edgin, Larcenous Lutenist, Breaches the Blastmaker, Jorien Ruin Diver, Lavinia Foil to Conspiracy, Shackleslinger, Monk Class, Crom Violent Cacophony, Oji the Exquisite Blade, Pyromancer's Assault, Freya Judge of Valor, Saruman of Many Colors, Ramas Ekor Ancient Shield, Storm of Saruman, Tomb of Horrors Adventurer, and Eris Roar of the Storm all fit this description. I'll also mention cards that trigger whenever you cast an instant or sorcery. Cards like Archmage Emeritus and Archmage of Runes draw you cards. Aria of Flame or Guttersnipe damage your opponents, and Puppet Stitcher or Tolerant Sky Summoner make you creatures. These cards do work within a typical Storm shell, but also feel great in this not quite Storm strategy. Some possible commanders in this strategy that I haven't already mentioned include Nostro, Voice of the Crags, Wrath, Weatherlight Stalwart, Vega the Watcher, Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy, Geralf the Fleshwright, and Goldbug, Humanity's Ally. One thing I do want to mention is that Cipher specifically lets you cast the copy you make, meaning you do get cast triggers. Alright, let's get back to the original question. We've covered several ways in which you could, theoretically, play Trait Doctoring. But is it actually unplayable? Well, no, but barely. I give it 1.5 dumpsters out of 7. It's honestly pretty bad, and you really need a specific kind of deck to get any use out of it. That said, it does have at least one home, and could be a flavorful include in a few other decks, especially if you're a fan of Dragon's Maze. At any rate, that's all for today. Let me know what you think of Trait Doctoring in the comments, and feel free to leave suggestions for cards you want me to review in the future.